Thank you for joining us. Another program of PNP Live and Direct. National elections, 10 days away, counting down. In a few days, 10 days, we'll be having a national elections. We have to be prepared for it, and this program is here to help to guide you in preparing for the upcoming elections in order for you to vote for the People's National Party. In studio, we have with us Gabriella Morris. Gabriella Morris is a former vice president of the Guild of the University of the West Indies. And when we say former, we're talking about just recently.
Just last year.
Just last year. Ah, indeed. And she's 23 years of age.
Yes.
And she's pursuing postgraduate studies in communications. And Gabriella will be telling us why, as a young person, she's supporting the People's National Party. She will also be expressing her views on a number of issues. And this program will be looking at quite a number of issues as we prepare for the upcoming elections. We'll also be having, during the program, Fitz Jackson, who is the party spokesperson on national security. He's also chairman of the party, and he's also a candidate for the People's National Party. During the course of today and yesterday, there have been quite a number of issues, one of which, Gabriella, has been the tropical storm. And Jamaica has been suffering from the outer bands of that tropical storm. The People's National Party expressed a position on that matter, where it stated quite clearly that persons must be very, very careful during this time. We do know as a fact that the storm water so far has affected quite a number of communities, quite a number of constituencies. We know that Western St. Thomas has been affected. We know that Eastern St. Thomas has been affected. And we know that Southeast St. Andrew has been affected, where we have roadblocks, where we have persons who have been flooded out. And we want to express sympathy on behalf of those persons. And I'm absolutely sure that the party's representatives in those areas have, in fact, been visiting those areas. Have you heard of any other area, Gabriella, or anybody who was?
In the Gordon Town area.
The Gordon Town,
landslide,
right, southeast.
Right. So
land slippage.
Landslide, yes. And a section of the road was also blocked. So residents in that area, I've actually noticed that a lot of people have been preoccupied with other items in the news.
Yes.
And so many persons have skipped over the fact that we're actually having a tropical storm. So as you said, persons need to be very vigilant. They need to take precautions and not try to cross blocks.
Fording, for example.
Right, because I saw some persons trying to cross an area. So as you said, it's important for persons to be very aware of that and to take every precaution.
It's also important for the agencies to move as quickly as possible to clear land slippages and to clear roads.
Right.
Because just imagine, with the challenge of COVID-19, for example, people being locked away because a road has been blocked and not being able to access
that is true.
priority foodstuff, medication, and the whole work. So we're calling on agencies to move as quickly as possible. And one of the things that we have found under the current government, JLP government, that agencies, while they are working as best as they can, are not necessarily getting the kind of support that they should be getting from a government to help. For example, under People's National Party government, you know exactly when your hurricane season will be. You activate through the parish councils, the cleaning of drains, the cleaning of roads, the cleaning of areas, to try and ensure that you have minimal effect
I can
during
agree
that
with you.
period
I've
of time.
seen that played out. I haven't seen much of a response. I don't know if, as I said, people are preoccupied with other matters, which shouldn't be. But I haven't seen much of that response to say, hey, it's the hurricane season, and as you said, drain cleaning, cutting of trees. I haven't seen much of that on the ground. So I think that's something that we need to also bear in mind, and I'm hoping that, as you said, they will move swiftly because we won't be out of the hurricane season until when? November.
Yes, until later in the year.
Right, so there's still much to be done, even in the COVID pandemic.
Another critical aspect of all of this too, is that this government boasts about modernity and providing you with roads. Go and look at Constant Spring Road. Go and look at Hagley Park Road.
Go and look at Hagley Park Road.
Yeah, I
right
want people to
now.
go and look at Hagley Park Road right now. These roads were roads that were negotiated by the People's National Party when the Honorable Portia Simpson Miller was Prime Minister of Jamaica. These roads were conceptualized in 2015 under People's National Party government. The money was identified. Financing was identified. All this government came and did was to ask for them to be put in place, having found the roadmap. But a People's National Party government would ensure that during construction we would have drainage. Hagley Park Road is what it is now because there's no drainage.
Billions are being spent to have these roads being built, but it makes no sense, and it's a waste of the public purse to have roads being built and being built improperly or not being built with drainage. It's a simple fact, and I think that we need to be more responsible even as we try to move towards development and as we try to put in place roads and so on. Be mindful of the fact that all of this is coming from the public purse, and
Absolutely.
so we need to do it with a bit more.
I mean, we will have to fix it. So when the Minister of Finance is talking about
billions,
when the Minister of Finance talk about carpet roads, you must go look at the carpet now. Carpet tear up, go Hagley Park Road, and you will see it torn up. Yes, we will have to come back to rectify all of these things. But shifting a little bit in terms of issue, COVID-19.
Oh boy.
What big issue?
Oh boy.
Big issue out there. What's your view? Elections being held during COVID-19. You have been listening to some of what has been said by our leaders. You have heard some of the pollsters say that people are saying good work by government, yet it's spiking.
Oh boy. Delano, in the initial stages of the pandemic, many young persons especially would have expressed their satisfaction with the government's way of dealing with the pandemic. I guess because there was a lot of communication, they said. You know, the press conferences, people like to see that they were being informed. However, I think that the government significantly dropped the ball. For me, the turning point was when we allowed visitors to enter. I don't believe that we were at that point in the pandemic where we were sufficiently prepared to facilitate that move. And I think that the government should have given a bit more thought to actually letting in visitors. Because I was reading just the other day, that visitors who come for business, that their quarantine time isn't the same as other tourists. And I just couldn't, wrap my mind around it because I'm saying that it's the same virus, you understand? So I just don't think that the proper protocols were yet in place for us to facilitate that. And that created a whole heap of spin-off effects because those tourists, they didn't quarantine. And additionally, the Emancipation Day activities, that again caused a huge spike in the COVID rates. So I just think that we weren't prepared sufficiently regarding protocols for COVID.
Gabriela, you have hit some good points. A pandemic, a national crisis in health is not something that we should tribalize, or is not something that we should politicize. But at the same time, if things are not going in the way that it ought to, then we must identify these things.
Somebody must
because
be
people's
held
health,
accountable
yes,
also.
people's health come first.
Right.
So what you had at the start of the pandemic was the Minister of Health appearing quite regularly on television. The Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, appearing regularly on television, because outside of transmitting that they're on top of things, I believe they also had the back of their mind that we will have to go to the people shortly, and therefore the more hours that we spend on television, that it will be better. They impose some restrictions on us, and I'll give you a typical example of what I mean by how they impose the restrictions. Bars were closed, right? So that ordinary man out there, ordinary woman in the community could not go to the bar. Churches were asked, please close your doors.
No services.
Have virtual services, no problem. Health centers were closed, no problem. But BPOs were left open. BPOs were left open, and the only reason why they moved to close BPOs was the spike that took place in BPOs. Then we heard, as part of the management of it, people being allowed to come in because we do know the importance of the tourist dollar to Jamaica. It is absolutely important, and the People's National Party government will ensure that we do our utmost best to grow the tourist dollar. But if health of your people comes first, you have to take some drastic measures.
That's the important thing. I don't think anyone was opposed to allowing tourists into the country, but as I said, I think it was the protocols, right? It wasn't structured in a way where we could guarantee the health of our citizens being placed above profit from the tourism sector. And I also think that a part of the government's response, it was as if they were prioritizing the economic gain over people's health. And I think most persons took offense to that. Many Jamaicans, they saw where the government wasn't acting in the best interest of persons. And that became even more glaring with them calling an election in the midst of a pandemic.
I believe, Gabriella, that they had information before them. A People's National Party, as opposition, would not have the same level of information that they would have. And I believe that they had information before them, which indicated very clearly that there would have been a second wave or a spike. So they said, let us call it. Let us call it early, because we want to do what we have to do in order to get in to deal with these things. But the issue of calling an election during a spike and a pandemic is a very big issue out there.
Many Jamaicans, they feel as if it was a gross disregard for the people, because we had up till when to constitutionally call the election.
We could go up until February of next year, and if there is a pandemic, you could have extended it for 3 more months if you so desire.
And even adding to the disrespect to the people was that we're so close to schools being reopened. And we don't have a handle on that either. You understand? So calling an election, school being open, it was just too much. I expected the government to prioritize the education system. Knowing how we left off in March, they should have been making arrangements to ensure that everything is okay for September. And then we can move towards having an election.
Before we get to suspension of motorcades, right? As a young person out there who will be voting for the People's National Party, or your peers, your colleagues, seeing the campaign, and how do you think come election day they are going to vote?
Young people are indeed interested in this election, and that's what I like. I think that a lot of people are ready to participate in the process. The polls would have said that many young people are indeed interested in the Jamaica Labour Party. But I think that many young persons have also realized the mandate of the People's National Party. And I think that our manifesto point on education was a very solid point for many young persons,
yes.
especially talking about the first in the family and the assistance that we want to give to tertiary students. I think that was a big selling point, and I think that a lot of young people are buying into that.
But they're saying Andrew have young people supporting him.
I
Prime
said
Minister
to
of
some of my
Jamaica.
colleagues last night that social media support does not necessarily translate into votes. And so that's something that we have to be mindful of. But I think on the ground, many young people are satisfied with the manifesto points from the PNP. They are indeed, you know, interested to see what a PNP government would bring to the table. And so I believe that it's just up to us now to sell those points and allow people to buy into them because of how they will impact their lives positively.
Yeah. The People's National Party, in keeping with what is happening with COVID-19 and the implementation of the protocols, took the decision to suspend large motorcades, took the decision to instill in their supporters not to gather in large numbers because we have to treat with COVID-19 very seriously. Some people may ask out there, then it's a campaign. How are we going to conduct ourselves? The party, having said that though, also indicated that the house-to-house visits, which we have traditionally done, must continue. The one-to-one contact with persons must continue. The preparation for election day must continue. So it's not that we are suspending campaigning. We are just doing campaign in a different form and in a different style out there. But it's always good to have a younger person in the room to discuss matters like these. Why should persons out there your age register to vote for the People's National Party?
I always say that voting, it's your right, first of all, and it also gives you a seat at the table.
Yes.
So for young persons, voting allows them to play a significant role in the governance of their country. So it's not necessarily about saying that, oh, you have to go out and vote for a particular party, but I first encourage all young people to play a part in the political process by exercising their franchise. Secondly, for me, I believe in the ideology of the People's National Party because I'm coming from a middle-class family, and for me, my parents are teachers.
Yes.
Hi, mommy and daddy. And, you know, I've seen how the People's National Party has allowed persons from the middle class to be able to own homes, to be able to own motor vehicles. They've significantly impacted the workers in the public service. I've seen how many students have been able to access tertiary education because of the PNP and its policies. And one thing that I firmly believe about the party is that they create policies that work for all Jamaicans. It's not for friend and Kumbolo and who know who, but they put in place policies that will impact the life of the ordinary Jamaican. And that is what I can really appreciate about the party. It has allowed young persons like myself to be able to access tertiary education. And so that's one thing that I have to really, really support the party for.
Thank you very much, Gabriela Morris, 23-year-old
Yes.
young lady. Active,
Yes.
former BP at the University of the West Indies Guild, and saying to all of us, vote for the People's National Party. As we come to a break, I wish to inform you that coming up is a discussion with Fitz Jackson, who is the party spokesperson on national security and also the chairman of the party, and will be speaking to us on plans having to do with the security forces.
Stay in our own alien, yeah. Peter Bunting.
Hi, my name is Natasha Powell, and I am from Central Manchester. Over the last 3 terms as Member of Parliament for Central Manchester, Peter Bunting has made tremendous strides in creating job opportunities for thousands of individuals. Firstly, He introduced Sutherland Global Services as a business processing outsourcing organization wherein within its first year has employed over 2,000 individuals. I was an employee of that organization. Secondly, he has made a tremendous contribution to the education system, thus assisting numerous schools within his constituency and creating spaces for employment and also to foster a creative teaching and learning environment. In addition, he has assisted with Bel Air High School with its transition from a private to a grant-aided institution where I'm proudly employed as an educator. Today, I stand with the performance boss from Central Manchester, my Member of Parliament, Peter Bunting.
Welcome to this section of PNP Live and Direct. We have with us in studio Mr. Fitzjackson, Comrade Fitzjackson.
Indeed.
Who is the chairman of the party, who is the party spokesperson on national security, but most importantly, is the party's candidate in South St. Catherine.
Correct.
So we have a number of areas to cover with Fitz inside here. What's happening in South St. Catherine?
Well, the voters in South St. Catherine are anxious to return me as their Member of Parliament come September 3rd.
How do you pick up this anxiety?
They have outwardly expressed that desire. And the fact is, it's not just on the eve of the election, but over the period of the term. I have adopted the position from day one to continuously work with my constituents. Constituents through their various organizations,
Right.
which include the churches,
Yes.
the schools, the citizen associations, and we have a few police youth clubs in the community.
What are some of the critical areas in the constituency?
Most of Greater Portmore.
Yes,
is
Greater
in-
Portmore.
Yes, from 2 East, 2 West, all the way over to 8 West, and Monza, Daytona, and 1 North, 2 North, Caribbean Estate, the Palms, and then you have all of the Brayton communities.
Right.
You have Old Brayton itself, Brayton phases 1 through to 8, Marine Park, and Congreve Park, Mount Royal Estates, which is in the Congreve Park area.
Those are some of the critical
Those are
areas.
some of the areas. Then we go actually into Spanish Town, where we have communities like Clifton, Quarry Hill, Villa Palms, Dunby Holden, Phoenix Park, all of those communities.
Excellent. And what would you say to those who are listening or watching as to what some of your accomplishments have been as Member of Parliament for quite some time in South St. Catherine?
Number one, through the working with the various citizen association over a number of years, we have brought about a separate municipality which deals with most of the local issues. Because as you will appreciate, most of Portmore is primarily a residential area. And therefore all the infrastructures to support a modern residential community is essential. So we have been able to maintain the drains, the roads, working together with the mayor and the councillors, conjoining funds from central government with that of local government. We have been able to ensure that garbage collection is at a reasonable level, though we have some fall off from time to time. And more than anything else, we have been able to steer the development in the area in a more orderly way, over and against what obtained.
So like you have done everything. What is it that they need to vote to
development
come after the elections? What will
Development
they
is
be
a
doing?
continuous process.
Yes.
So one is to maintain what we are doing. And one of my dream projects, which I've started, is for a modern, state-of-the-art youth development center, where we'll create swimming pool and other facilities. I've gotten the architectural drawing done. I've gotten the quantities done up from a quantity surveyor. and it's to raise the funds. I don't know if you have a check that could make the first $10 million contribution towards that effort. I would welcome it.
I'll talk to the
Comrade.
producer afterwards because usually he directs in this regard.
I welcome that.
But let me ask you this though, unemployment, is it an issue in
It
the
is an
constituency
issue.
and how do you plan to
It
deal
is
with
an
it?
issue. Most of the employment in the Portmore area in general, and not just my constituents of South St. Catherine, East Central and South East, is from outside. Because I mentioned before, it's primarily a residential area. There are some emerging employment opportunities, mainly in the BPO sector and in the commercial sector through the shopping center zones that we have. And you have a bit of minor or small minor manufacturing
yes.
that is taking place. So we try to encourage those, but the truth of the matter, the bulk of the employment is going to come from outside. And for that reason, the macroeconomic environment
Critical.
is critical to my constituency.
Let me shift a little bit now and ask you to put on your hat as chairman of the party. The party issued a release just now, almost recently, asking our supporters to conduct themselves in keeping with the protocols because of the spike in COVID-19. How are we going to be able to manage that?
It is imperative that that happens by each and every one. I believe that the irresponsible decision of the government in calling the election at the beginning of the surge.
But you called for it, you're chairman of the party,
No,
called for it,
we have
and said we
said-
want an election.
We have said that we are ready,
Yes.
and opposition does not call the date for an election. And our responsibility is to be prepared at all times. We have indicated that we are prepared and we are ready. Now, that said, it is the responsibility of the incumbent government to make those decisions at a time that is in the best interest of the country and not necessarily one party or the other.
So you're saying that Andrew, our Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, called it at the wrong time, the COVID-19.
In light of the COVID-19 surge that we are in other countries they call the election when they have a leveling out taking place or a decline. In the case of Trinidad, in the case of Australia. When Australia have been called the election and they had a surge of just 49 cases
Yes.
in a few days, they suspended the election. But we have a different situation in this country.
Let me ask you
everybody
just a
knows.
second question wearing that hat. You are strongly of the view that the PNP will win the elections.
We are confident of victory.
Why are you so confident?
You see, Delano, the government is formed by the majority seats in the parliament.
Yes.
We have 29 seats currently, which we will be holding. And we need only 3 more seats. We know we have opportunities in at least 12 more seats. But all we need is 3, though we see a strong possibility of at least 12 more.
So the cushion of the 12 is if we were to lose 2 of the 29, for example,
Indeed,
or 3
indeed,
of the 29,
indeed,
then
indeed.
we'll be able to have enough to form government.
And this didn't come about upon an election being called.
Yes.
We have been pursuing this ever since we have gone into full preparation mode, which is 3 years ago. Since 2017, when we took on the reorganization of the constituencies and the preparedness for the elections, we sought to ensure that we're in a striking distance of those seats that we saw.
And no doubt when we win the election, that the hat which you now wear as spokesperson for the party on national security, maybe we may have with us in studio the next Minister of National Security.
It's a possibility. As you know, the Prime Minister
Yes.
is the one that ultimately determines the composition of the cabinet.
Yes.
I am and have been the spokesperson for this portfolio over the past 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And up until then, I hold the responsibility for that portfolio on behalf of the People's
So
National
what is
Party.
it? What is it then that you will be doing in relation to crime and violence?
The data tells us that just around 60% of the murders are committed by gangs. So we can identify the set of persons to target. As Minister of National Security, that would be my number one priority. So imagine if we can reduce the murders by gangs alone by 50%. That's a big chunk.
What is the government now doing that is wrong in relation to crime and violence?
I'll give you a simple reason. The police force, police officers have said that the anti-gang legislation has some significant weaknesses which hinder their ability to deal with gangs and gang violence.
Right.
The government has tabled some modifications, some amendments to the anti-gang bill. It has taken them 2 years from October 2018 to now to complete the review in Parliament. Not the amendments yet, the review for the amendments. And the amendments are yet to be made. I am saying to you in Jamaica that a People's National Party government led by Dr. Peter Phillips and me or anyone as national security would expedite those legislative changes in the shortest possible time so that we can strengthen the legislative provisions for the security forces to get their work done. And that applies to a number of other legislation. For example, the JCF Act need to be reviewed. Absolutely nothing has been done in 4 years. With the reform of the JCF and its structure, we have reviews done in 2005, subsequently in 2014. Since this government has taken office, absolutely nothing has been done to reform the JCF, to make it a more professional organization, to make it more relevant.
What is
to
it that
Jamaica.
what is it that you would be doing and the government would be doing to make the security forces far more professional than it is now?
Well, the reform structure is would have to go through a process.
Yes.
And a process of consultation. And I don't want to predetermine what it will be.
Right.
But what I want to say is that what the reform should be out of consultation with our experts. Because we politicians are not necessarily experts in security.
Yes.
Our responsibility is to facilitate the changes which are necessary so that the institutions of government can operate more effectively and more efficiently.
Earlier today, the party officially launched the entire manifesto,
Indeed.
right? So that people will now be able to access it. There are some critical areas of that manifesto which I will ask you to speak to. One of which has to do with the motor vehicle policy, making vehicles more affordable for people generally. There is no doubt that you have far more motor vehicles now in Jamaica based on policies of the PNP in the past. The issue has always been, how do we make it more affordable, particularly for our young professionals?
Well, the way that the government, going back to the 70s, have sought to make motor vehicles, later than that, 90s,
Yes.
accessible is through duty concession, which is available to a certain segment of the public sector. That is an area that we would consider to make motor vehicles more accessible to our public sector workers in general, but giving priority to those that are most vulnerable, those in the security forces, those in the health services. Now,
What about the teachers?
And teachers.
Teachers.
One might immediately say, but how are you going to facilitate it? There would be some revenue reduction because how the duty concession works is that you pay less duty on that imported motor vehicle than you would normally pay. There are projections made by the Ministry of Finance every year on the amount of motor vehicle to be imported and the expected or anticipated revenue from that. All it would mean is that there will be less anticipated revenue from that rather than additional expenditure on the part of the government.
Yeah. Another important...
But let me hasten to say though,
Sure.
any revenue loss in that regard
It'll have to be made up somewhere.
would have to be made up somewhere, but most importantly, it is a worthwhile investment in enhancing the security of every Jamaican.
Every Jamaican, yes. Another critical issue which the manifesto spoke to was the matter of housing. there are so many Jamaicans who would just need a break to be able to own their own house. The rent to own proposal that is being made in the manifesto. You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Indeed. Essentially what the party is saying, that what we have found from our research or the feedback from the public, an individual or a couple wanting to acquire a house, the biggest challenge that they have is the deposit. But they can pay the rent,
Yes.
but they can't find the deposit. So what we're saying is that we partner with you. We will facilitate you by the rent that you are able to pay will now go towards the deposit. We'll help you to get that start. We'll give you that push
deposit
start.
that you're talking about.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you'll pay in monthly,
Yeah.
it will be accumulated,
Right.
and it would go towards the deposit you require,
Right.
so that you qualify for a mortgage that your regular rent will now service. So a renter can automatically become a homeowner.
Would the police
It's very
also?
all
Would the
public
police
sector,
also
all
benefit from that, or
indeed.
you have special thinking in relation to police and housing?
You know,
As priority.
When you have a wide spread of needs, you have to give priority. And as I said earlier on, the number one challenge that faces this country today, every single Jamaican, is the question of security. And for that reason, should I be the Minister of National Security, sitting in that cabinet room, I would raise hell
Yes.
to ensure that the security forces are beneficiaries of, as a matter of priority, because what they are successful in doing, which is reducing crime, will make your life, the doctor's life, teacher's life, and everybody
better.
else's life better.
All right. Before we wrap, there is just one other area as it relates to police, and that has to do with how police men and women improve themselves while they are in the force. So we're talking about study grant, and we're also talking about promotion. Any thoughts on that matter,
My own
particularly as
thoughts,
it relates
my
to
own, the
study
latter
grants?
point you made about promotion.
Yes.
Let me be frank with you. And I talk to individual policemen out there. One of the reasons why policemen are very concerned about promotion, it's the only way that they can earn more money.
Yes.
In the proposed or anticipated reform of the JCF in mind, we want to ensure that a police who want to remain a beat policeman, not every policeman wants to be a commissioner or superintendent. There are some policemen who want to be a lifetime beat policeman.
Yeah, man.
Be on the
Operational.
street, operational.
Operational.
There is no reason why he can't earn more money by being a very good street policeman, beat policeman. So you have to structure the thing in such a way that he can spend a lifetime, right, in that area, earn more money without having to get promotion. That is what the whole reform process will be looking at, that they can be sufficiently compensated while being more competent in the different areas that they function. The question you raised about training, I don't believe that any modern organization in 2020 and beyond can contemplate not having the competence of your staff being improved.
Yes.
And so indeed, we're not seeing it as just a benefit for the individual policeman or woman. We're seeing it as a means of enhancing the competence of the force. So two things happen. That policeman can better self-actualize while you have a more developed, a more improved JCF and security service.
Security services. Healthcare and safety issues of police, which link with the whole notion of provision of insurance for members of the security forces. What are we saying on those issues in the manifesto?
What you have touched on is two very distinct areas.
Yes.
One is the insurance for the policeman
Yeah.
or woman in carrying out his duty. That obviously has to be reviewed with a view to improving it. Because what you want, Delano, is for each day that a police officer goes to work, he goes with less stress on his mind about what might happen to him confronting criminals and what happened to his family should anything happen. That's one aspect. The other aspect I think your question was speaking to is when a policeman gets injured, particularly in the line of duty, confronting criminals. I have a case of an officer, Davis, whose mother was killed in Old Harbor. And that killing was related to a shooting incident that her son was involved in, carrying out his duty.
Yeah.
And they took revenge by killing his mother. So the question is, when something happened to you and you have to go to the hospital, the level of security that is provided. In other words, do you have secured environment for policemen injured in the line of duty to obtain medical attention? There is some amount of that already, I know, at KPH. The question is how adequate it is in terms of geographic location or adequacy of space and facilities at KPH itself. Those are things that indeed a national security ministry headed by myself would give adequate attention to.
Fitz Jackson, pleasure talking to you. Fitz Jackson is the spokesperson on national security. Fitz Jackson has outlined very well and eloquently that in the government of the People's National Party, the security forces, members of the security forces, will be treated with as top priority.
Well, if you might permit me, just one last
Sure.
point I want to make. And it comes out of my own experience, having served in government before. The assurance that I can give to members of the security forces and the country in a whole, that myself serving as Minister of National Security will be their voice at the cabinet table where decisions are made. No sensible minister cannot fail to or refuse to or is weak in representing the force. Because, put it bluntly, Delano, for me to look good and to be successful as a minister, I want an effective police force.
You have to make sure that you have an effective police force.
They are the ones that are going to make me successful in reducing crime and make Jamaica safe for all.
Yeah.
And therefore, I will do everything on their behalf.
And you're confident that you will be returned as the next Member of Parliament?
Well, the people of South St. Catherine have given me that assurance.
Yeah. So when, on election day, you want them to do what?
Vote for Fitz Jackson and to elect a new People's National Party government headed by Dr. Peter Phillips.
Thank you very much. You have heard from Fitz Jackson, Chairman of the People's National Party, as well as spokesperson for national security and a candidate for the People's National Party.
Julian, the MP with the right solution. Say we have vote for Julian, with integrity serve the nation. Trumpet sounding, music pounding, gather round in togetherness. Trust the process, him say progress, gather round in togetherness. Jamaica are the island, the country where we love. Make we come together as one. Represent for the head where you're red and you're orange, and vote for the man Julian. Julian Robinson Youth Education, empower youth, we build the nation. Give a grant scholarship and support for the youths, them every level education. Hey, come if we vote for Julian, the MP with the right solution. Say we have vote for Julian, with integrity serve the nation.
Welcome back to PNP Live and Direct. I'm Gabriella Morris, and here with me is Delano Franklin. Now, the PNP recently launched its manifesto, and just this morning we had our press conference where spokesperson Lisa Hanna spoke to some of the issues relating to the mismanagement from the government. Now, we have a clip that we want to review that speaks to those issues, so take a look.
In the 13 years that I have been a member of parliament, I've been in opposition twice and in government once. The GLP has been in government 9 years in my time as serving the people of Southeast St. Ann. And under our time, I can specifically say that we definitely transformed the economy. The benefits that Jamaica is reaping today is as a result of the People's National Party. But I want to really come back because I've said specifically that we can't just meander out of this COVID fog. We really have to leapfrog out of it. And we have to have the leadership and the management structure that takes us out of it. The Jamaican people have actually heard us give some tangible solutions. And I think they are very impressed by the solutions that the People's National Party has put on the table. So in closing, I really want to thank you and Mark for the tremendous work that you have done. I would like to speak a little bit more to our COVID plan because people are anxious. They are concerned about the livelihood of their children, especially in terms of education. It might even be pushed back to December. Some children are being told that they'll only go to school 3 days a week. A lot of mothers don't even know where to find the first cent, Marcus, as to where they're going to buy the book from, let alone the uniforms, because they're out of work. So to our viewers, the choice is clear. What type of Jamaica will you choose? A Jamaica run by politicians who raid public coffers as seen in our institutions like the Caribbean Maritime University and Petrojam, plans to steal protected lands or mismanage our healthcare system. Currently, the GLP government is unable to control crime and violence. A PNP government with Dr. Peter Phillips, who jailed the biggest criminals. A JLP government who neglected our ship workers, or a PNP government who defended our ship workers. A JLP government that, wants to build luxurious villas for themselves, or a PNP government that will build 130,000 new homes for those persons who really build our economy, the plumbers, the teachers. Our PNP government who built Jamaica, we defend the right to the quality of living for every Jamaican. We defend the masses. We'll always be here for you. A PNP government is the leadership that you can trust. Choose the PNP and let us build your Jamaica.
So the party leader has recently conceptualized a new addition to the manifesto, and that is the wealthy plan. Wealthy, yes, you heard correctly. So it's interesting to note that the Y in the wealthy, it speaks to youth. And the PNP has taken a real interest in the youth of our country as they see them as important to moving the country forward and building a better Jamaica. Let's look at the clip that explains the wealthy plan.
The wealthy program, and I want to establish it is wealthy, meaning the Y, which is a very important aspect.
I want you to explain that because a lot of people believe that prosperity is wealth, but
Yeah.
prosperity is seasonal.
And prosperity is also the individual.
Right.
So we have always been a party for progress. We felt that a rising tide raises all boats. And so the wealthy plan is seeking to do exactly that. The W is for water. The E is for employment and entrepreneurial activities. The A is for access, in particular to education and to the internet as a necessary part of business and learning. The L is for land, which the leader of the opposition and the soon Prime Minister of Jamaica has been very committed to land ownership. And we feel that you shouldn't go to the embassy of the United States and be told you have no ties to the only country that can't deport you.
And the T?
And so the T is for technology, and the H is for housing, and the Y is for youth. And that's why the Y is very important, because there can be no wealth without youth development.
Absolutely.
So therefore, that is what the leader will be coming to. We have highlighted some within the manifesto, and one of the things we are very excited about is the grants remuneration program.
You have just heard two clips, Gabriela. One presented by the campaign spokesperson, Lisa Hanna, and the other one by Damian Crawford, the chairman of the manifesto committee. And people must go out and get the manifesto. People must look at the manifesto online. This is what the People's National Party is presenting. This is what makes the People's National Party different from the Jamaica Labour Party in terms of the content of its manifesto. The proposal, for example, a wealthy proposal with the Y for our youth. Every youth out there should now go and try and find out exactly what is in store for them, and make sure they vote for the People's National Party.
I agree with you, Delano. You couldn't have said it better. The wealthy plan, the manifesto,
Yes.
solid points.
Absolutely.
So we're looking forward to September 3, and
Yes.
we encourage everybody out there to go out and to vote for the People's National Party. I'm Gabriela Morris.
And I'm Delano Franklin.
And thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode of PNP Live and Direct.
Hi, this is Angela Bornberg, your candidate for Southwest St. Andrew. Thank you so much for the support you have given me over the past 3 years. On September 3rd, we head out to the polls, and I'm asking you to put your X beside the head. A vote for me will allow me to work with you for an empowered and strong Southwest St. Andrew. Let's build your Southwest, my Southwest, our Southwest St. Andrew. Blessings.
Northwest St. Anne has been represented by Dr. Dayton Campbell since 2011. During that period, he has represented the people well, provided support particularly for the young people and for others who are dependent on infrastructure of roads, water, medical care, and the like. He is our candidate again in the elections that are due very, very soon. He represents the best of the People's National Party, and he is our only candidate in the elections that are coming forward now. When the elections are called, vote Dayton Campbell in Northwest St. Anne. Vote for the People's National Party. Vote for the power of the dream. Dayton Campbell is there to build your Jamaica that all of us have dreamed for and that all the leaders of the party have all struggled to bring about. Vote for Dayton Campbell to build your Jamaica.
Yes, boss.
Yes.
Right, I love that.
You good?